Hi, I'm Jill and this is Badger. Today we're going to take you through a short functional class to challenge your balance, and it'll incorporate some rotation patterns as well as helping to release around the hips and the back area, so I hope you enjoy. We're going to start off standing up today, so just stand nice and comfortably on your mat with your feet about hips distance apart, and just notice how you feel for a moment. How does the weight rest in your feet? Do you feel like you're standing quite tall? Notice how your shoulders are resting on your back. From here, I'd like you to just gently shift the weight into the balls of your feet and then gently shift the weight back into the heels. Keep going with this, so gently rocking forwards. Feel like you're making a gentle imprint in the surface underneath you and gently rocking back into the heels. If you feel balanced, start to just challenge yourself a little more by raising the heels up as you go forwards, and then perhaps lifting the toes and spreading them wide as you go back. Rising up and gently rocking back. And just check that as you go forward, you can keep the balls of the feet, in particular the big toe joint of the foot, in contact with the floor. Let's just do one more each way. Just rising up and then rocking back into the heels, and then just find the center point of the feet again. Now we're going to take the weight into the feet towards your left, so you rock to the side and then go over to your right. You'll start to feel that you move onto the little toe edge of one foot as you're rocking to the big toe edge of the other, and again you can see how far you can go, challenging your balance. And then let's link these two movements together. So take the weight over to the left, roll forwards into the balls of the feet, come over to the right and around into the heels. Feel like you're tracing around the edges of the feet. Do you find that you can meet all the edges of the feet, or are there any parts that perhaps are not used to doing these sorts of movements? So try and get the movement to feel as even as possible, and then try going in the other direction. So gently rolling, circling around on the bottom of the feet. Then we're going to come back to the middle, find that center point where you feel nice and balanced. And let's do the same thing, bring our attention to the hips. So I'll show you from the side. You're going to fold at the hips and just lean forward. I get a deep crease and a fold here. And then I'm going to lean back and feel the stretch at the front of my hips. Leaning forward, I've got quite a flat back here. I'm not rounded. The focus is on my hips, and then gently stretching back. And again, folding forwards and gently just stretching the hips and leaning back. Come back to the center. Now just be careful, it's not a side bend for your back. We're really focused on the pelvis here. So to help you, you could place your hands on the side of the hips. You can feel that you're pressing your hip into your hand one way and the hip into the hand in the other direction. And then just like we did with the feet, could you link this together? So we go over to the left, take the hips forward, over to your right, and then take the hips back. Going around to your left, take the hips forward, circle around and back. So does the movement feel even all the way around? Try changing direction. This is a really good little exercise to do before you go for a walk or a run. So it helps to balance and center the pelvis. So you tend to find that you function better when all of that is working well. If it feels easy to go around in a circle, perhaps try and find a figure of 8. So again, you can just keep your hands on your hips so you can feel what's going on. Just doing this figure of 8 movement and then change direction. You probably went the easy way first. So again, really freeing for your pelvis, hips back, a really nice little exercise to do before you go out for a walk or a run. Let's bring the pelvis back to a balanced position in the middle, and then let's move on up to the shoulders. So let your arms relax by your sides. I'm now going to start to just roll the shoulders, shrug the shoulders back. So can you feel the shoulder blades sliding around on the back of the rib cage? Sometimes you can feel a bit of clunking or crunching going on, but with this slow, steady movement, it should start to feel a little easier after a while. Try alternating, so take one shoulder back and then the other. So as you can see, alternating the shoulders like this is taking me into a small rotational pattern. So allow that to happen, and you could start to move your gaze towards the side of the room, which will encourage you to rotate a little more. The focus is up in my shoulders, but I can actually feel the rotation going right through my torso, through into my legs, and right down into my feet. I can feel that I'm rocking gently in and out on the feet. Good, last time. Then come back to the middle and let's go the other way. So you're going to roll and shrug the shoulders forward. Again, get that sense of the shoulder blades coming around the rib cage. Does it feel nice and even for them to slide around? And what about if you go into this alternating pattern? And again, the alternating pattern will take you into this gentle rotation. Nice and easy in the shoulders. And then come back to the middle again and just pause for a moment. Now what we're going to do is take one shoulder back as the other shoulder goes forward. So you have to just get your head around that for a moment. It should look something like this. One shoulder is rolling back, the other shoulder is rolling forward. So you've got a little coordination challenge to work with here. And if you get confused, just go back to doing one way or the other. It really doesn't matter. But if you've got it on that side, try going the other way. You probably did your good side first, so how does it feel to coordinate the other shoulder going back as the other shoulder goes forward? This gets better the more you practice, so if it's the first time you've tried this, give it a couple of goes and you'll probably find that it becomes a lot easier second, third time round. Bring the shoulders just back to balance, just stand nice and easy. Now let's bring our attention to the back. So we're just going to reach the arms up towards the ceiling, take a breath in, circle the arms around by your sides and bring them in front of you. Gaze down towards the floor, let your arms feel heavy, let your head be heavy and gently roll down towards the floor. When you get here, just hang out for a moment. If it's more comfortable for you, you can soften your knees whilst you're here. And then to come back up, point the tailbone down and slowly unravel from the bottom of your back and come back into standing. Let me show you that from the side. You reach the hands up to the ceiling, lifting the breastbone, gently stretching through the front of the body, circling the arms around, bring them in front of you and gently roll down towards the floor, remembering that you can soften your knees if you need to make the tension a little easier through your back. I'm going to slowly unravel from the bottom of your back, rolling through and reach the arms up to the ceiling. Let's just bring the right arm down by your side. Keep your left arm reaching to the ceiling and reach and stretch that arm a little further and then side bend over. So get as much space and stretch as you can down this left side. And then slowly come back to the center. Bring your right hand up and bring your left arm down and do the same. Stretch up first, find some length and exhale as you reach over to the side. Let's just do that one more time to each side. Take one arm up, one arm down, reach up and over. To give me a little bit more stretch on this side, I'm going to press the foot down towards the floor and just send my hip over to the left a little further. And then unravel, come out of that, stand tall and bring your right hand up and your left hand down, reaching up. Exhale, stretch over, press gently down to the floor with the foot and maybe for a little bit more, send the hip out to the right. Let's come back to the middle and just bring the arm down by your side. And again, just check in, notice how you're standing and how you're feeling. Just from those few exercises, you might feel a little bit more centered and balanced. But let's move on. I'm going to bring you down onto the mat next into a seated position. I don't think that's going to work with you there, is it? Okay, we're going to come into seated and just sit cross-legged and bring your hands lightly onto your knees. So when I sit upright, I'm on my sit bones, but I'm just going to roll onto the back of my sit bones and feel this curve in my lower back. And then gently pull on the knees and rock onto the front of the sit bones and feel a gentle stretch in my spine. So just do that a few times, gently rocking back. He's going and gently rocking forwards. And you could rock onto the back of the sit bones, just hang back here and have a little rock from side to side. So notice how that all feels on the back of the pelvis. And then do the same, just rocking gently forward onto the front of the sit bones and have a little rock from side to side here. Let's just do that one more each way. So rolling back, just hanging out, having a little rock from side to side, curving through your spine, and then gently rocking forward. Feel the breastbone just lifting in that space between your arms. Then we're going to come back to the middle and just uncross the legs and bring the feet in front of you. So you've created this diamond effect with your legs. Hands on the legs, and you're just going to rock onto one sit bone and rock onto the other side. I'm using my hands just to gently encourage me. So by pushing and pulling with the hands, it helps me to get more easily from one side to the other. And if you can notice my back, as I roll through the middle, I'm slightly rounding back. And then as I come up into sitting, I'm just lengthening through my spine, reaching up. So I feel like there's a hook on the top of my head pulling me up towards the ceiling every time I come onto one side. Now you could stay with this, so if you're feeling a bit tight or restricted around your hips, just stay working with this for longer. If you want to add on, you're going to rock to one side, take your opposite hand across to the knee and rotate and look to the back of the room. Come back through the center, take the opposite hand onto the knee and look back. So keep the movement slow and considered if it feels a little bit restrictive in your system. But as you get going with it, if it feels a bit easier, you can make it much more fluid. So really just rolling from one side to the other. And your gaze really helps you with this. So if you're looking towards the back of the room, your body will just tend to follow. Good, let's just do one more each way. And make your way back to the center. Okay, let's bring the feet out in front, hands behind the thighs, and just roll our way down onto the mat. I've got my knees bent, my feet flat on the floor, and I'm just letting the bones rest into the surface underneath me. Notice that you can bring your pelvis to a position where it feels quiet and balanced, and keeping it there, just allow your right knee to slowly reach to the side of the room. How far can you take the leg without the pelvis tipping and coming with you? And then slowly bring the leg back in, stand into that right foot and release the left leg away. And again, so keeping the quiet stability around the middle and just finding some length through these inner thigh muscles. It's a nice little stretch for your hips as well, so it really helps to loosen off around that area. Let's add on to this. So this time we're going to take the right leg out to the side, keep it here and bring the left leg over to join it. Keep the right leg where it is and take the left leg to the other side. And then bring the right leg over to join it. So whereas the previous movement, your pelvis was really quite quiet and still, now you're going to feel much more of a rocking, rolling action around the bottom of your back. One side of the pelvis rests down and the other side of the pelvis gently lifts up. It's a really nice exercise if you're holding some tension in your lower back or around your hips. You can stay with this if it feels enough, or the next time both of your legs are at the right, bring the legs together. Notice that the left side of your ribs has come away from the floor, and as you take a big exhale, roll the ribs down, and then your waist, and then your pelvis, and let the legs get carried over to the other side. Pause and take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, roll down through the ribs, the waist, the pelvis, and let the legs get carried over to the other side. So we're trying to avoid any big heaving from one side to the other, just gently rolling through the torso. A nice gentle rotational pattern. If it feels easy, then you could apply the same strategy, but have the legs up in the air. So how would it feel if your legs were here and you take both legs over to the right, feel the left side of the ribs coming away from the floor, and then as you exhale, roll down through the ribs, the waist, the pelvis, and take the legs in the other direction. Again, use your breath. Exhale through the middle, inhale to the side. If it feels a bit too heavy and too much effort, go back to having your feet on the floor to really enjoy that rotation and release. Bringing the legs back to the center, take the feet down to the floor and have them a hip's distance apart. And again, just bring your attention to your pelvis. So at the moment, the pelvis is settled on the mat. But what I'd like you to do is gently start to rock it from side to side. So if you put your hands on your hip bones, you can feel what's going on a bit more. One hip is rising up to the ceiling and the other hip is sinking down. So there's a definite sort of rocking, rolling feeling at the base of your back. Keep going with this movement of the pelvis, but bring your hands above your chest. So as my right hip lifts up towards the ceiling, I'm going to reach my right arm up like this. And then as my left hip reaches to the ceiling, my left arm reaches up. So you'll feel that you start to rock onto the side of your torso. My right hand, my right hip lift, I'm rocking to the left. Left hand and hip lift and I'm rocking to my right. And you can start to take your gaze to the side of the room as well. I can hear footsteps. That's it. So just looking towards the side of the room as you gently start to rotate. So this is really nice just to loosen up through the shoulders, through the back. A nice gentle rotation pattern. But now I'd like you to make your way back to the middle. Just settle for a moment. We're going to do the same movement, but a counter rotation. So if my right arm lifts to the ceiling, my left hip is lifting. If my left hand reaches to the ceiling, my right hip is lifting. So this is a counter rotation, the same sort of movement that happens in our bodies when we walk or when we run. Just nice and easy and gently rocking from one side to the other, but the shoulders are moving the opposite direction to the pelvis. Do a few more. It tends to get a little easier the more that you do. And you can see that my arm reaching to the ceiling is gently twisting, so my palm is turning out. And then gently settle back into the middle again. Feel the weight of the pelvis resting to the mat. Feel the shoulders relaxed and easy on that surface underneath you. The arms are just going to reach overhead and then circle around by the sides, giving a stretch at the front of the chest. And again, arcing and reaching the arms overhead and circling them around. And this one more time, when I reach my arms overhead, I'm going to bend the elbows, interlace the fingertips behind the head and start to begin with chest lift. So I'm lifting my head and shoulders away from the mat and then slowly rolling back down. Imagine that you've got a bright light on your breastbone and you're beaming it towards the wall in front of you as you curl up, and then beaming it towards the ceiling as you roll back down. The next time you come up into chest lift, you're going to beam that bright light over towards your left knee and then over towards your right. Start to take your gaze to the side of the room that you're going to. So I'm looking over to the left and then gazing out towards the right. You can stay with this if it feels enough, or as one leg lowers, the other leg could lift, which means you don't have time to have a rest in the middle. You're just rotating from one side to the other. The leg which is going to the floor is starting to stretch and extend and reach away. My pelvis is still remaining balanced in the middle as I'm rotating and looking from side to side. Perhaps you could imagine that you're reaching these elbows a little bit further away from each other to encourage more of a twist. Last couple, you'll know you're doing it right if you feel your waist muscles working. And last one, and then come back to the center, rolling down, just hug the knees into the chest and do a gentle little rock from side to side. So I'm lying on my side and I've roughly lined up to the back of my mat, and I've got my feet and my hips and my shoulders on top of each other. And just notice the position of your torso. So you don't want the ribs sticking out too far in front of you or back. Just feel that the ribs are on top of the pelvis. Now, if you feel a bit wobbly, you can put your spare hand, or you could have a dog to lean on, which is quite helpful, but you could put your spare hand just lightly in front of you for some support. But if you feel well balanced and you want a little more challenge, bring that spare arm up to the ceiling like this. So noticing that you've got a little gap underneath your waist, we're going to try and keep the torso long like that, and lengthen and hover the top leg from the floor, and then slowly release the leg back down. And lengthen and hover the leg, and slowly release back down. So you sometimes feel that when the top leg lifts up, you want to squash your waist down towards the floor, but try not to let that happen. So try and keep the waist as long as you can. If you can do it with ease, lengthen and hover both legs and release back down. So lengthening and hovering both legs without squashing the waist down to the floor. So you're trying to keep your torso really long. Let's do 2 more of these. Remember, you could do it just with the top leg lifting, or both legs if you feel that you can keep the balance. Then we're going to lift the top leg up and keep the top leg lifted here, yes we are, and lengthen and bring the bottom leg up to meet the top one. So you might feel a bit of work in your inner thigh muscles here, but also it's challenging your balance, what's happening around your hips, what's happening around your torso. You can't see if I'm cheating because I've got a badger in the way, but do check in and notice how you feel around your waist, or if you felt that you were rocking forwards or back, that wouldn't be ideal with this exercise. Good. Let's do 1 more on this side. Lengthen and hover the leg. Keep it here. Keep reaching the legs long and strong. Check you can take a really deep breath and then slowly release back down to the floor. Let's change sides. So you can bend your knees in just to release for a moment and then change to the other side. Just change my mic over. Okay, so same thing. You're just going to roughly line up to the back of your mat. It's a nice reference point for the back of the ribs and the pelvis and the shoulders. Have your feet on top of each other, your hips and your shoulders. And just take a couple of deep breaths to settle in here. Your spare hand could be in front of you, or if you feel well balanced, just reach this arm up to the ceiling. Then we're just going to start to lift and lower the top leg. Just notice what happens. It can feel really different on one side compared to the other. So are you able to keep the hip bones on top of each other? Can you keep your waist long so your torso is lengthened without squashing the waist down towards the floor? Are you able to breathe with ease? Sometimes we end up holding our breath on these kinds of movements. If it feels easy, if you feel well balanced, you could maybe explore lengthening and hovering both legs together. Again, the focus here is not about how high you can lift the legs, it's about keeping the balance in the middle. Can you keep the waist long? Can you keep the hips on top of each other? Are your ribs staying on top of the pelvis, so not popping out in front of you? Let's do 2 more of these. Remember, if you've got a wobble on, go back to the previous position where just one leg was on the floor. That's good. Okay, and then we're going to bring this top leg up and keep it lifted and lengthen the bottom leg and draw it up towards the top one. Imagine that your inner thighs have got magnets on them and they're attracted towards each other. And can you find that movement through the lower leg and still keep the balance in the middle? Keep the waist long, keep the torso balanced. Let's just do 2 more of these, just this little challenge to your balance and stability. Well done, and then gently release down towards the floor. From here, let's roll onto your tummy and just rest one hand on top of the other, rest your head onto your hands. Take a nice deep breath, feel the shoulders just relaxing onto your back. And I just wanted to do a little bit of a warm up for this top part of your spine. So we're just going to lift the breastbone just off the floor. The breastbone lifts up, the front of your ribs gently sink down towards the mat, and then gently release that back down. The feeling is that the breastbone is moving forward, so you're creating some length and stretch in the upper part of your back. You don't need to come up too high so that you feel discomfort in your lower back. The focus, the attention is on this upper part of the back, that area between the shoulder blades. Let's just do 1 more and peel up into your little extension position here, and then bring the arms out to the side, just easy in a sort of capital E or capital W position so the shoulders are relaxed. Take a look over your right shoulder, see if you can see your right foot. Come back to the middle and look over your left shoulder. So you're just allowing your upper back and your shoulders to move as you gently look and rotate from side to side. My gaze is low, so I'm looking down towards my feet. or if you're at home, you're kind of looking at skirting boards. Look all around the room, but keep your eyes really low. And then if this feels all right and you want to go a little further, you could just lift your gaze a little bit more. So if you're doing this class from home, you may be looking at kind of the sofa or the chairs, maybe towards the windows around the room, that kind of height. So you can feel that you're moving through the middle part of your back now. Just do one more to each side, just really nice kind of loosening up exercises for that top part of your spine. Come back to the middle, roll back down and just slide the hands in underneath your shoulders. Now we're going to lift the forehead and the breastbone just off the floor. Continue to peel the front of the ribs away. How many ribs can you get off the mat? Maybe your tummy button comes up, perhaps your hips. Wherever you get to at the top of that movement, just sit back towards your heels and take a moment to stretch. From here, let's come up onto all fours. Bring your hands under your armpits and knees under your hips. We're going to round the back towards the ceiling. So let your head drop down and your tailbone too. And then lengthen the tailbone, lift the breastbone in the space between your arms and gently extend. Go again, rounding and arching through your back, exhaling, and then gently inhale and go the other way. And let's just do one more each way, just warming up through your spine. And then find the place that feels balanced in the middle. So you just have the natural curves of your spine here. From here, let's just challenge our balance a little bit. So can you reach your right arm and your left leg away from each other and stay fairly balanced and quiet in the middle? Bring the limbs back down onto the mat and change to the other side. And bring the limbs back. So you could imagine that if you had a glass of water balanced on your pelvis, you're trying to keep it fairly steady. It can wobble a little bit, but you don't want it tipping off your back. Opposite arm and leg. Nice little stability exercise, just challenging your balance here in the middle. If this feels quite easy, you feel nice and stable doing this, then add in a bit more challenge by reaching the same arm and the same leg away. So it's going to look something like this. I shift my weight slightly into my left side and I reach my right arm and my right leg away. Slowly bring the limbs back in. Take the weight just gently into that right side and reach the limbs away. So explore that a few times. An out breath as you reach away is really helpful with this. And then could we add in a little bit of rotation? So as I take my right arm and leg away, I'm going to turn and take my gaze to the right side of the room. And the more I reach with my limbs, the more balanced I'm going to feel. And then I'm going to slowly come back into the start position. Shift the weight to the right. And slowly come back. Try it a few times. Often you'll find that as you do a few, you improve and get a bit better as your nervous system figures this one out. A couple of things to think about. If you're really wobbly and you need more help, have a look at this lower leg. So I could turn that lower leg behind me, which would give me more support. But as you start to master the exercise and feel more balanced, if you can keep that lower leg where it is, it's going to offer a little bit more challenge. So you can do what you need to do there. And really reach the limbs long and strong away from each other. So the more you're reaching those limbs and finding some tension through the system, the more balanced you should feel. Let's just make this one the last one. Good. And then just pause and rest. We're just going to tuck the toes under and just press up into a triangle position. And you could just do a little walk here, so lifting up onto the balls of the feet, alternately bending the knees, just walking through the feet and the ankles. And then from here, keep the hands where they are and just step by step walk the feet in towards the hands. You'll end up somewhere like this. Let the head drop down, let the arms dangle heavily and slowly unravel and come up into standing. So I've got a little multi-directional challenge for you to have a go at in standing. We'll go through it bit by bit and you can do as much as you feel comfortable with. We're going to come into a really wide stance like this with our hips facing forward and ribs on top of pelvis. So the legs are nice and wide. And I want you to go into a squat position here. So notice how that feels as you squat down and then gently press back up. Now just check what happens with your feet as you come into the squat. You should have the tripod of both feet, big toe, little toe, center of the heel, and push up through that tripod. If you tend to roll on the inside of the foot, the big toe edge of the foot, the knees would collapse in, which isn't so helpful on this exercise. So be really sort of grounded through both feet. And can you keep the ribs on top of the pelvis? So if I show you from the side, I'm here and I'm not leaning forward. That would be not so useful for the back. So we're just folding at the hips like this and unfolding, lengthening through. So you could just work on practicing this if this feels enough. But if this feels okay, we're going to try transitioning into some different directions. So you're going to drop into this squat and take your left leg over to kickstand next to the right. Come back to the center and then go the other way. This sort of movement or drill would be really useful if you play any kind of sport where you're having to change direction, or if you do a lot of walking and running, which tends to be very much in a straight line. This is going to train you a little bit more in your rotation and moving side to side. So if you're feeling well balanced, you could challenge your balance more by bringing this leg up into the air and hold. Good. Come back to the center and let's go back to the squat position again. That nice wide squat and coming back up. Now this time, could you drop down into the squat and can you stay here and just lift up the heels, put the heels down and press back up. Try it a couple of times. Do you remember when we did it at the beginning of the session and we were just shifting the weight forwards and back in the heels? And when you lifted the heels from the floor, you were keeping the big toe joint of the foot in contact with the floor. So you're not rolling onto the little toe edge for this. You stay nice and grounded through the feet. Good, and again. So now could we add this into what we just practiced to the sides? So you go squat, step to the side, back to the middle, heel lift. Maybe add in a balance. Maybe make it a little bit more dynamic by taking that heel lift into a jump. So if you feel very wobbly, I would suggest that you just stay with some of the easier options. But if you're feeling a little bit more balanced or energetic, this is a really good functional little warm-up before running, walking, racket sports, anything like that, just to get the legs, the hips, and your rotations online. A couple more of these. Going as quickly or as slowly as you want to. And slow it back down. So bringing the legs back slowly together so they land just about a hip's distance apart. Notice how everything's feeling, how you're standing into the feet. How do you feel around the pelvis, shoulders, back? Do you feel different to when we checked in at the beginning of the session? Take a deep breath in, reaching the arms up towards the ceiling, lifting the breastbone and circling the arms around. Gently just roll down towards the floor. Arms heavy, head heavy, just hang out here. And then slowly roll through the spine. Unravel and come back into standing. Take one arm down, stretch the other arm up, go up and over. Come back through the center, change sides. And come back to the center. Bring the arms down by your sides, shoulders relaxed. Well done. Thank you for joining me in the class again today. Hope to see you again soon.